Now we'll take a look at our client use case in practice. We'll be able to look at the QuickBooks Online interface, the M-Files interface, as well as the DatumSync interface, and how all this works together. First, we're going to load our new install of M-Files with the existing customers from our existing QuickBooks Online account. Next, we're going to go ahead and load our vendors in our fresh install of M-Files from our existing QuickBooks Online account so that we can work with customers and vendors. We'll also populate our AP invoices, the bills that exist already inside of QuickBooks Online, and without any manual data entry, we're going to go ahead and populate those inside of M-Files. Now that we have bills, we're going to go ahead and make some adjustments for our supply company. We have a bill and we've realized that the invoice date is incorrectly set to January 9th. It should have been set to January 1st. So we make that update in M-Files. We go to QuickBooks Online. We can see there in the bill date, it was set for the 9th. And after our update in M-Files, it's now correctly set to the 1st of January. Another helpful piece of information that can be gleaned from QuickBooks Online is the status of these bills that we have to pay. You can see that 2 bills have been received for $300, and now we're going to go ahead and pay that $700, bringing it to a fully paid status in QuickBooks Online. And you can see in M-Files that it's overdue, and after a quick refresh and making that payment in QuickBooks Online, it's seamlessly updated to paid status in M-Files for the balance of the team to be able to see our payment status. Now let's take a look at what it looks like in the background while working with DatumSync, how we can start different workflows for QuickBooks Online and M-Files integration just by clicking a couple buttons. That's it, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Renee where he'll start our DatumSync integration walkthrough.
Thanks. I will show you how we can synchronize customers from QuickBooks Online to M-Files. And in DatumSync, we do this by creating a workflow. So let's start by creating a new workflow. We can call this QuickBooks Online customer to M-Files. And then we need to select a starting point. This is where the workflow retrieves data from. So in our instance, we want to retrieve from the QuickBooks Online customer table in this workflow. So we select that one. And we can specify to DatumSync what records we want to retrieve. So this is every time that this workflow is running, every 5 minutes, every hour, we can tell it what records we want to retrieve. Now the default or the recommended setting is the new or updated records. This was the defaulted value. We hit update. And then we select the endpoint or the next point in our workflow. And in this instance, we want to insert this data into our M-Files customer table. So we already set up a connection to the M-Files system and have a customer table available. So we just drag it onto the screen. And here, M-Files system, we have these options where we can do different things with inside of M-Files, but we just want to update or create the record inside of M-Files. And we hit update. And then the big part of this is the data mapping. This is the right side tells us what columns are available in M-Files. We have the title, we have a balance, city, country. This is specific for this customer table. And on the left side, we have the data from the QuickBooks Online system. So the title, for instance, in QuickBooks Online, that's called a display name. That's similar to the title. And we can actually retrieve data like the balance. It's also a value over here. And then in case we need to do some logic operations on some of these fields, we can actually do that within the data mapping. So in case of the street one, let's say we want to combine the 2 line items from QuickBooks Online into one. So we can just go in and we have a line item 1. We add that to the field, put a space in, put in the line item 2, and hit save. And that's it. We can make these logic expression as part of this data mapping screen. Then we need to tell DatumSync how we want to do the data mapping. How can we identify the record in M-Files compared to the one in QuickBooks Online? So in this scenario, we'll just use the display name and say, try to find a record in M-Files with the same title as the display name. We can actually put in several values, so we can say with the display name and the city equals the city inside of M-Files. Now, since we did a update or create in M-Files, DatumSync will first try to find this record based on these criteria. If it finds it, it will update the values over in the data mapping. If it doesn't find it, it will create a new record inside of M-Files. So this is again the most common use for DatumSync. So that's it. Now we're actually synchronizing data from QuickBooks Online customer table to M-Files with the data mapping that we set up. Now in QuickBooks Online, inside of the customer table, they also have like projects. So in case we want to eliminate all the projects, we can add a logic switch to the workflow. So we just go in, add this to the workflow and say, is not a job, or we can say is a customer in this instance. And again, we want to find in QuickBooks Online, there is a field called job, and this must equals false. So if this is true, that means that it's a customer and the data will go this way and do the data mapping. If it's a job, it will go down and nothing happens to the record. It will still be processed, but nothing happens. And we can simply add more criteria. For instance, if it's is this a US company or a European company, we can add different layers or logic switches to the whole workflow. So now we have synchronized data from QuickBooks Online to M-Files. Let's say we also want to do a bi-directional synchronization of customers. So we go in, create a new workflow, and this time it's from M-Files customer to QuickBooks Online. And our starting point this time is the M-Files customer table. We select the starting point. Again, we have all records, new or deleted, new or updated records. That's the one we want to use. And in this instance, we just want to copy it straight into the QuickBooks Online customer table, like so. And the QuickBooks Online, we want to do an update or create. And again, we go in and we do the same data mapping, but this time, of course, the other way. So for instance, we might not want to do the balance. We might not want to synchronize balance from M-Files back into QuickBooks Online. We have the display name, which then in this instance equals the title. And we can set up all the other fields as well. And we hit save. And that's it. Using these two workflows, we now have bi-directional synchronization set up. DatumSync will take care of all the data and make sure that the data only gets copied one time and not keeps an endless loop synchronizing the data. And then part of once we set this up and we have a working workflow, our default QuickBooks Online customer to M-Files workflow looks like this, where we have the customer table from QuickBooks Online. We start by looking if it's a job. If it's a job, we find the customer that this job belongs to, and we update or create the job instead of M-Files. So it's actually doing several things in one step, in one workflow. If it's a customer, if it's a primary customer, we do a simple update of the customer, and in the last case, it can be a sub-customer. We have a different table inside of M-Files to deal with sub-customers, and this is all part of our template for creating a new QuickBooks Online customer to M-Files system.